Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Friday at a press conference in Turkmenistan, a country in Central Asia, that a new world order is necessary, where wealth is distributed more fairly and the voice of every nation is heard.
In the current difficult situation where the world is facing unprecedented threats, when international relations are entering the era of deep-rooted changes, when we're building the new world order that reflects the variety of the whole planet, and this natural process is irreversible, that Russia advocates for maximally wide international discussion on the cooperation in the multipolar world that is being built today. We're open to discussing issues of building the new world order with all of our friends, partners, and like-minded friends.
Russia's President, Vladimir Putin, has met with his Iranian counterpart, President Masoud Pezeshkian, for the first time. The two leaders held face-to-face talks at a regional summit in Turkmenistan, where they joined a number of heads of state from other Central Asian and Arab states. The Kremlin said the Russian and Iranian presidents discussed mutual relations as well as the situation in the Middle East. The meeting comes amid soaring tensions in the region.
Russia has increasingly been inviting Iranian officials to events. Analysts say it's an attempt to show that Moscow is not isolated. But it's not clear if Russia will back Iran in the event of a full-scale war with Israel.
Que a la luz de todo lo que está sucediendo en Oriente Medio, la comunidad internacional cese de exportar armas al gobierno de Israel. Creo que esto es de urgencia y este es un llamamiento que voy a hacer desde el primer instante al conjunto de la comunidad internacional. El cesar de exportar armas al gobierno.
Russia is increasingly leaning closer to the anti-American forces in the region, this being Iran, its proxies, and the Assad regime in Syria. In fact, Russian military base in Syria was nearly attacked by Israel missiles, and many have been speculating whether this can lead to further escalations.
For the last year, Israel has been fighting a war on what is now 7 fronts. And there's one thing that is in common to all of those fronts, whether it's Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and much more. The one thing in common is the revolutionary Islamic government in Tehran, which has been subjugating the people of Iran since 1979, and whose regional ambitions have been out in the open for a very long time and are absolutely explicit at the moment. They complain about Israel being a colonizer state. The Iranians are colonizing across the whole region, whether it's Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and they are in a war which the regime in Iran says includes the desire to wipe Israel off the map. This has been their desire for decades, since 1979.
But what we've seen over the course of a year is international condemnation. Allies of yours, the United States, the UK, France, Germany, these countries coming out, and they've stood with Israel for decades, and now they're saying Israel has gone too far. When you say that, destroying Hamas or reaching some kind of victory, even if they are launching 1 or 2 rockets, they're still launching rockets, they're still there.
Israel is fighting a war on behalf of the world against the craziest, most fanatic jihadist ideology and terrorists on earth. We are fighting Iran on behalf of the world, because imagine that Iran acquires a nuclear weapon. Europe's going to be under fire. If we let them get away with it, let me be as clear as possible. They're going to do this in the UK. They're going to do it in New York. They're going to do it in Paris. They're going to use citizens to hide behind. This will become the world's plague. Israel is fighting your war. And instead of sitting on the side benches and giving us criticism all day, the world should back us in defeating this horrible, savage terror.
Well, ties between Russia and Iran have strengthened since the Kremlin sent troops into Ukraine in 2022, with Tehran widely believed to be supplying Moscow with weapons.
And the U.S. also believes that the Islamic country has transferred short-range ballistic missiles to Russia.
Relations with Iran are a priority for us, and they are developing very successfully.
We have many opportunities now. We should help each other in many areas. Our viewpoints and positions in the world are much closer to each other than to those of others.
Iran is at its most advanced point in history. It's acquired uranium in an amount for 10 nuclear bombs. This is crazy. They're building the bomb already, the bomb itself. So we're in the 11th hour. I would say strike the nuclear facilities, strike the regime.
Will Israel do that alone? I don't know. But it seems to me, as I say in the New York Post today, that it's absolutely incumbent on Israel's allies to help it stop these theocratic fascists in Iran from getting the world's most dangerous weapons. And if it has to be Israel alone, I suppose it will be, but it shouldn't be.
Now, these countries include the likes of Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, which all host American troops on their ground. The report further said that in their message to Washington, these nations have expressed their reluctance in letting Israel or the United States use their airspace for any military operations against Iran.
The countries sitting on top of some of the world's most valuable oil reserves are reportedly terrified of what happens next. And then there is the OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia. The organization has reportedly enough oil reserves to compensate for any disruptions in Iranian supply. That is, if Israel's retaliation takes out some of Iran's oil infrastructure. But here's the problem. Most of that spare capacity is located within the Gulf region. Reports say the Gulf states know that even if Israel finds alternative routes for its strikes, they are still at risk. A missile war could break out at any moment, and Gulf oil facilities could still be the targets, and which basically could throw the global oil supply and the world economy into chaos. The question is quite simple. Can diplomacy prevail, or is West Asia hurtling towards a scenario where even if certain countries do not want things to head that way, the situation will be inevitable?
And contributing greatly to preserving peace and stability in our common region, to expanding the multipolar cooperation and partnership. Thank you for your attention.